Hi, sweaties. Hey, sweaties. My microphone's down here, and I'm gonna try not to hold it. And welcome to my bedroom. I'm back. Well, I've been back, but I'm back with another continuation of the breakdown videos, specifically the American Horror Story breakdown videos. Finally doing it. I've gotten plenty of comments from people. They needed a more extensive breakdown of the actual timeline of American Horror Story, so that is what we're going to do, bestie. I'm trying to download PowerPoint onto my You don't need to know all the ins and outs of this, but I've gotten like my laptop over here, but I'm not able to record on it because the microphone won't hook up to it, so I gotta do it on my big computer. Download PowerPoint. I wrote PowerPint. I gotta download PowerPoint. I've spent way too much time making this stupid PowerPoint. I say stupid affectionately. I'm not gonna pretend like I didn't make this video already. I filmed this maybe like a week ago. I made that video before I made the PowerPoint, and I was gonna cut together the PowerPoint and that video. It just didn't look good. And also I missed pretty significant points. Long story long, I'm gonna record this again with the extensive research that I have. This is a big trigger warning. If you are not comfortable with sex, blood, killing, essay, suey, taking one's own life, foul language, smoke. Do you know how stupid it is now that they have to put a warning for smoking at the beginning of a show? They're like, hey, they're gonna smoke a cigarette. I'm very proud of myself for this PowerPoint presentation I'm about to give you. Who clapped? I mean, really. When I was doing the American Horror Story videos, I think you can tell if you go back and watch them. First season that we went over, Murder House, started to do it as like a timeline chronologically, and then as I kept going with the other seasons, it just was easier if I just explained it how the episodes aired. But I don't think I really, what the title says, I don't think I really broke down where everything falls on the AHS timeline. That's what we're doing today. I have it all lined up from start to finish. What is it, 12 seasons? We're going there. Get a snack. Go get something to drink. Mine's over there. I don't feel like getting up. Are we ready? I sound like Chris Angel there. Are you ready? Mind Freak. I used to watch Mind Freak too much. Mind Freak and Ghost Adventures were my shit. Let's get started. This is the American Horror Story timeline. That's me testing the microphone. These little bad boys up here, these are our color-coded system, okay? We've got red for Murder House, purple for Asylum, slightly darker green than this last one is Coven, Freak Show is blue, Hotel is yellow, this beigey, nude, flesh-colored one is Roanoke, like pastel-y blue. That is Cult. Black Apocalypse. This one, it's supposed to be white, but you wouldn't be able to see it, obviously. That is... The fuck is that one? Hang on. 1984. This pink one is double feature, and I will distinguish between Red Tide and Death Valley, okay? And then we've got a darker gray, NYC. And this last one, it's supposed to be like a minty color. That is Delicate. If you are paying attention to my videos, that was the colors I used for all my post-its. That's so cute of me. You know the system. I'm gonna explain this like you've already watched something about the show, and I'll kind of like jog your memory. I'm also not talking about American Horror Stories, like spin-off show that they have. I'm not talking about that shit. I've had a lot of people ask me to react to it, make a breakdown video for it. I've never watched it. I've heard not good things about it. So I just want you to know that this is just the American Horror Story, the main show. There's some things that might happen in between these years. I don't know about it. I even have visuals. Oh, some visuals. Don't get too excited. All right, we're gonna start over here in 42 AD. Yes, where the timeline starts. Can you believe that? This is Delicate. What's going on? Well, there's this lady. Her name is Ivy. She gives birth to 2 twin girls. In the midst of all of that, she dies. But then she's brought back to life. Don't worry, brought back by Siobhan, Kim Kardashian's character. That's how our timeline starts. I'm gonna jump ahead, still the same season. We're gonna jump ahead to 1243. So this is when Ivy, she gives her daughters, Sonia and Adeline, the mark of the Delicate Witches. Because Siobhan brought them back. Siobhan is like the leader of the Delicates. As she brought her back, she becomes a Delicate Witch, so does her daughters. This storyline's kind of whack to me, like I don't get it, but whatever. If you watch Delicate throughout the season, the main character, Anna, she's got like a mark by her chin. That is the mark of the Delicate Witches. So in 1243, Ivy is like chewing on some food or something, and she spits it in Adeline's face, and a little bit lands on her chin and stains her face. And so then Ivy and Sonia are like, oh, yeah. We'll do it too. And so that becomes the mark of the Delicate Witches. Look, okay, they didn't ask me to write this. I wouldn't have done it like that. This one was pretty broad. They didn't really give an exact year that I could find. In the 1400s, I don't know how to pronounce her name. I have yet to learn. Scathach. It's Lady Gaga. And we're in Roanoke. She comes over to America and she becomes the very first Supreme. Now, we're not talking about Coven just yet. Don't get it confused. 100 years later, in the 1500s, there's the Lost Colony. Well, we've got Miss Thomason, will also be later known as the Butcher. She gets exiled from the colonists because her husband, he left the colony, go get supplies from England. All the colonists are like, hey, we need to dip. I think they're somewhere in Virginia, but the colonists are like, the weather here sucks. The rations are shit. We need to leave. Get the gang together and dip. We need to go down to North Carolina. Thomason is like, no, my husband told us to stay here and wait for him. That's what we're gonna do. They're like, fuck you, Thomason. Go, leave. She goes into the woods because she's exiled. Actually, she's chained up. She doesn't have much of a choice. And she meets homegirl down here, Lady Gaga. I'll help you out if you let me come back with you to this colony and I'm gonna run things. Sells her soul to Supreme. We'll just call her the Supreme. Thomason ends up killing Mr. Cage. He was the one that kind of led the pack and saying like, you need to leave. She's like, you know what, you guys? You're right. We should go down to North Carolina. Let's go. They start partaking in human sacrifices. Colonists, they're not down with it. Another kind of little uprising within the colonists. That sends Thomason over the edge and she's like, oh, y'all. She plans a dinner and she poisons the colonists. Everybody dies. Thomason kills herself for a sacrifice for That is how they become the Lost Colony by American Horror Story standards. Back to Delicate, 1555. So we've got Queen Mary I, who's also Bloody Mary. She's giving birth to her first child and she actually births a monster. Well, her sister Elizabeth comes into the room and she's like, bestie, what the is that? Other delicate witches come into the room and they're like, oh good, give us the baby. So they take the baby. Elizabeth is like, can't do this. They say, yeah, we actually can, and we're gonna take your babies too when you start having kids. She says, no, you're not. That. Well, then they do a little spell over her stomach and she is left barren. She can't have kids. I'm assuming Queen Mary did give birth in 1555. Maybe I should fact check before I say anything. Oh dear Lord, just give me a damn answer. Oh wait, okay, excuse me, wait a minute, she never had kids. Oh, Mary believes she was pregnant twice, but both times are false. The false pregnancies were likely caused by cancer in her liver. Oh my god, T. Mary died in 1558. Oh sweet Lord. And was succeeded Protestant half-sister Elizabeth I. Oh, the drama. Well, that's that. Okay, look at this. Look at this. We're gonna go ahead and get into the next century. Over 100 years later, we're in 1692, and the Salem witch trials are running rampant. They're going off. The current Supreme at this time, Miss Prudence Mathers, she invokes something called the Sacred Taking, which is basically K-words herself. In order for a new Supreme to rise, I'll give you a little insider scoop. When a new Supreme is on the rise, the current Supreme will start to weaken with her powers and her body. Most of them just end up getting really sick. And so she's like, well, I'll just do the Sacred Taking and one of y'all can become the next Supreme. Y'all need to leave Massachusetts and go down to New Orleans. And that's what they do. 1790, we get Miss Robichaud's Academy for exceptional young ladies. 2 years later, elsewhere in Roanoke, in North Carolina, we got Edward Philippe Mott. He's building the Shaker Mansion. Well, you know, he's not doing it. He's got people building a big Shaker Mansion for him where all of the spirits end up at in the Lost Colony on that land. That is where it all takes place. The colonists don't like that Edward is building on their land. We didn't say yes to this. This is our land, homie. What are you doing? They end up killing him. I also want you to pay attention to the last name, Mott, because that will come into play in a little bit. 1830, Madame Delphine LaLaurie, she comes to New Orleans and she starts to torture her slaves. LaLaurie is a real person. If you don't remember, she is a cunt, okay? She is a bitch. Just tortures her slaves because there's no real reason for it. She's just sadistic. She keeps them in her attic and, well, it gets bad. We get to 1834. Bestie, LaLaurie, one of her slaves fooling around with one of her daughters, so she thinks one of her slaves, Bastien, up into the attic and puts a severed bull head on him and creates the Minotaur. Bastien was actually in love another woman, Marie Laveau. Marie Laveau is the voodoo queen. Laveau has sold her soul. It's not funny, but she sold her soul to Papa Legba. She gave up her first child so she could live forever and always. I guess Bastian also lives forever too. He's around in modern times, so I guess he's immortal too, unless it's the spirit of I don't know. Well, Laveau gets wind of what happened to Bastian. She goes to see him. She's like, oh my God, you're kidding me. She doesn't say that. She's actually a lot more upset. Delphine LaLaurie, she wants to look young and beautiful. Lana Del Rey. Oh my God, Lana Del Rey's in New Orleans right now, married to an alligator man. Laveau, she comes up to the mansion one day and she's like, hey girl, I have got a bottle of something and you can stay so nice, pretty. I mean, look at me. I'm like 100 years old. She takes it. It's a vial of Laveau's tears and it's going to make LaLaurie immortal. They bring her out to the street. They've killed her 3 daughters and her husband, strung them up on the side of the house, and she says, you're going in a box and I'm gonna bury you alive. 1834, Laveau buries Madame Delphine LaLaurie alive. That was a long explanation. Also, I think you should just enjoy the simplicity of these slides right now, because when we get into like in the 2010s, it is going to be so fucking chaotic. This one was very broad, also 19th century, okay? We've got Edward Mordrake. This is in Freak Show. We all know Freak Show is elite. He is born, and when he's born with a face on the back of his head. He is a freak. Face on the back of his head, sadistic, and tells him to do really bad things. Bethlehem Hospital, the head is telling him, kill the nurse for me, why don't you? And he breaks out of the hospital. He joins a circus. The face tells him to, why don't we fucking kill everybody here? Kills all the freaks, kills all the carnies, and then he K-words himself. And they said that when he was swinging, saw his face on the back of his head was smiling. That is spooky. Back at Roanoke, there's this man named Kincaid Polk. He's a pig farmer. He goes to the World's Fair in 1893. I don't really know why. I can't remember what his reasoning was. I think he was just insane. He goes and he commits a whole massacre at the World's Fair. Later on, he falls into like a pig pen or something. The pigs end up killing him. That is where we get the legend, the Piggy Man. All right, we're gonna get our first hotel card. 1895, nothing really super exciting happens except for James Patrick March is born. Mr. March. This is my favorite. Mr. March and Kit Walker are my favorite Evan Peters characters he's ever played on this show. Probably Mr. March. Almost 10 years later, we got the Countess is born. Her name is actually Elizabeth. I think it's like Elizabeth Johnson or something. I call her the Countess. Now, bestie, we're going back into Coven. The only redeeming quality I think Coven has for me. This is about the Axeman. Not that I don't love the Axeman. I like Danny Houston. Danny Houston plays the Axeman. The Axeman was a real person. He was a real serial killer. One time he posted something in the newspaper. He said, hey, if you want to live, play jazz for me on this night. If y'all ain't playing jazz, I'ma kill you. The night comes, everybody's playing jazz, except for the Coven. Why? Because the Coven is like, who the fuck is this guy? Who does he think he is? I think in my video I said they weren't playing music at all, but I think really they were playing some kind of opera. The Axeman was walking by and he's like, I told you to play jazz. And he's about to start swinging. Well, the Coven comes around, they start killing him. He dies. He becomes a spirit of Miss Robichaux's academy. His spirit is stuck there, but he's dead. And we're gonna move on. Now see, we're getting a little bit more chaotic here. We get our first official murder house thing. 1922 is when Murder House is built. It's built by Dr. Charles Montgomery and his wife Nora. It's in LA. This is the home front. This is what started it all. I know obviously they didn't film inside of that house specifically, but if I was walking down the street and I saw that house, I think I would shit myself. That'd be like seeing the Full House house. I wouldn't be able to control myself. We're gonna go to 1925, go back to Hotel. Also, I didn't mention, but Hotel takes place in LA too, right down the road from one another. The construction begins on the Hotel Cortez. This is also when the Countess, she is it's like a background actress, and she meets famous actor Rudy Valentino. Look who it is! Look! It's Finn Whitrock. Countess meets Rudy Valentino, and then also meets his wife, Natasha. Countess really just falls in love with Rudy. She puts up with Natasha, but she really only loves Rudy. They tell her, hey, we actually would like to have an open relationship, like a threesome. Would you like to join? And she's like, yeah. Well, also what happens that year is that Miss Evers, who's this lady right over here in the corner, this is before she works at the hotel. Her son is out trick-or-treating with her one day. She turns her back to talk to somebody for like 2 seconds. Her son is being killed kidnapped and taken to a ranch. We don't have to get into it. It's really disgusting and gross. Her son ends up passing away. So that ruins her life. Now we're going to the next year. So we've got Murder House. We'll start with that one at the top. Charles and Nora, they start a little side hustle of giving abortions out of the house. Guy finds out about his girl going to get the abortion. He's not happy about it. He calls up one night. An eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. They see their own son Thaddeus has been taken by this man, and this man ends up cutting him up, killing him, and sending back the pieces. Charles, he takes the pieces of the baby, he ends up sewing them onto like animal fetuses, ends up creating something called the infantata. The infantata is infamous. Infantata just lives in the basement of Murder House. After that, he shows it to Nora. Nora is like, what the f did you do to my baby? She takes a gun, puts it up to his head, kills him, and then takes the gun, kills herself. 1926, Thaddeus technically dies. Nora and Charles die. The infantata is born and stays in the basement. I wonder how it stayed alive. Also happening down the street at hotel, Rudy and Natasha, they end up faking their deaths. What's really happening is they were turned into vampires. When the hotel is being opened up, they're having a party, and some guy runs in there and he's like, holy shit, Rudy f***ing died. The Countess is there and she's like, are you f***ing kidding me? And she feels like she's gonna die. I'm never gonna find love again. Well, James comes in. He's like, well, you can marry me. You can have this hotel, be my lady. Ends up marrying James. Rudy and Natasha come out of hiding. They meet up with her and they're like, hey, how y'all doing? I'm actually alive. We can turn you into a vampire too if you'd like. Catch a train and go live our days somewhere else. And she's like, yeah, let's do that. They change her, schedule a time to leave. James, he's listening. He don't like that because he's like, this is my lady. This is my piece of ass. He's built the hotel to be a whole mind fuck. The hotel is supposed to be like a big maze for prey, full of sealed hallways, torture chambers, places for him to just put people in the walls and shit. He somehow gets Rudy and Natasha to come to the hotel. He ends up putting them in a sealed hallway and seals it up for like ever. The Countess goes to the train station and she's like, where can my baby be? And she's like, again? Really? She ends up going to see Dr. Montgomery. She got pregnant by James March. The pregnancy was happening while she was changing into a vampire. So it's just Dr. Montgomery to have an abortion, but it's too far along. The baby is turned into some kind of monster. His name is Bartholomew, and his face, I don't want to judge or anything, but he looks She gives birth to him and then is like, all right, I'll take you back home. And this is also where James March begins his 10 Commandment killings. I'm not going to talk about the 10 Commandments killer of it all because I really will be here for an extra 45 minutes. He's killed... Okay, I'll explain some of it. But he wants to kill inspired by the 10 Commandments. I guess it wasn't that hard to explain. He only ends up killing 2 people for his 10 Commandments killing. He's killed a lot of people. 1928, this is in Freak Show. We've got Jimmy Darling. He's born. Della's the strong man. He looks relatively normal. Ethel's the bearded lady. They get together, they get married, she gets pregnant with Jimmy. When he is born, he's called the lobster boy. He's born with lobster hands, and it actually runs through his dad's side of the family, Dell, but it skipped a generation. Dell is pretty ashamed of him. It reminds him too much of his dad, an abusive asshole, so he doesn't like the fact that Jimmy looks like his dad. He tries to kill Jimmy, but Ethel is like, hold it right there, Buster. Get out. He just up and leaves. 1930. This is tea. I love this storyline so much. I was gooped in hotel. Miss Evers, she is so in love with James March. She ends up calling the police on James and telling them that he is killing all these people. She's like, yeah, well, he's here at the hotel currently killing. She comes into the room and she's like, oh my God, bestie, James, they're coming. They're gonna kill you. And he's like, oh man, really? I just got started. She says, well, how about we kill ourselves? How about we die and then we could stay in this hotel for forever because our spirits will stay here. And so he's like, yeah, I think you're right. Miss Evers has James kill her. He takes a knife, slits his throat, kills himself. So James March and Miss Evers die in 1930. Now, he didn't realize that Miss Evers was the one that called at this point. He always assumed that it was the Countess that called. This is mostly freak show territory. So we got 1932. Miss Elsa Maz is a prostitute, a dominatrix. It's involved with some people that want to make a snuff film. It's like extreme porn. Yeah, nasty. But while they're doing it, they cut her legs off. Yeah, so she ain't got no legs. Also, who's doing this, and I'll talk more about him in a little bit, but there's a man there named Hans Gruber. grouper. He's the one that's doing the cutting of the legs. But then after all that, ends up meeting a man named Massimo. They end up falling in love. He's a carpenter. He ends up building some wooden legs for her and teaching her how to walk again. 4 years later, she moves to America and begins to start her freak show, Fräulein Elsa's Cabinet of Curiosities. She moves to America. She meets Pepper. Now, Pepper is a crossover queen. Shows up in Asylum, obviously freak show. She's got a bigger part in freak show. But when she meets Pepper, she meets her at the orphanage. Her dad left when she was born. Her mom had just died, and her sister is a drunk, just dropped her off at the orphanage. Elsa sees her one day and is like, I'm gonna start a freak show. I'm gonna steal the Declaration of Independence. And 2 years later, we got Ethel and Jimmy. They join the freak show. 1940, we got a Coven card real quick. Anna Lee Layton takes her Seven Wonders test and becomes the next Supreme. The Seven Wonders is a test that witches take if they feel like they have all the powers to become the next Supreme. We had tests where I'm from. I mean, everybody's got exams and stuff, I would assume. Where I went to school at, we had something called, I don't know why they called it this. We called them SOLs. Out of luck. When I see Seven Wonders, it makes me think like, oh, so it's like my SOLs. I would fucking fail. I failed so many SOLs. 1941, just because it was a time stamp in the show, and I was like, well, I might as well put it. We have Stanley meeting Maggie. I only put that there just to kind of fill in the gap. Look at 1952. Just look at it. We're getting ahead of ourselves. Let's go back to 1943. Twisty the motherfucking clown. I love Twisty so much. This was before he became what we see up there. Traveling with the circus. The carnies there, the staff, don't like that he's getting all the attention. So they frame him into being a child molester. Which he's not. He is not. They run him out of town and he's like, well, I'll just go back to Jupiter. I'm just gonna go live with my mom, I guess. Well, she's died. He starts trying to sell little trinkets and odds and ends he's made into little toys, but they're like, this is garbage. He ain't got no job. He got chased out of the circus because they framed him to be a chomo. His mom died. What do we do? He's at rock bottom, and so he gets a gun. It doesn't go according to plan. He puts the gun in his mouth, but he takes off the bottom jaw. Well, that is where he creates a little smiley face mask. I feel like the Joker when I do that. Like the Jared Leto Joker. Sorry. Put that he becomes a serial killer here, but I'm not entirely sure at what point he starts the killing. Alright, we're gonna go back to Murder House for a bit. Dr. Curran has moved into the house. He's a dentist and he runs his dentistry out of the basement of the house. A lady shows up by the name of Elizabeth Short. You may know her if you follow true crime. She's also known as the Black Dahlia. Not what really happened to Elizabeth Short. It's based off of her crime that happened. Details are not the same. In American Horror Story version, she goes to the murder house, says, I need a cavity filled, but I don't have any money. One of my friends said you could help, Anyway, so he's like, let's just worry about your tooth first. I'm gonna put you under. He ends up just going about his business and he has his way with her. And then afterwards, he was like, all right, let's go ahead and get the tooth fixed. He takes the mask off. She's dead. He's like, oh fuck, oh fuck. Dr. Montgomery's spirit shows himself and he's like, hey, I'll help you out. I'll take care of the body. I just need you to move it. He ends up cutting up the body. Now this is how people found Elizabeth's body. Torso was cut. I think they call it a Glasgow smile. Dr. Korean tosses her on the side of a road in LA. Elizabeth's spirit is actually in the house, but she doesn't really do much. Next year, we're going to go back to freak show Chester Krebs. Now Chester was in the war, shot at or something. He ended up having a metal plate put in his head. Kind of with his psyche a little bit. Comes back from war and sees that his wife has found a new lover in the form of a woman, which at that time was so One night, one of them pushes his buttons too much and he ends up killing both of them. Also in 1948, the season of 1984, don't get confused, 1984 is the title of the season. Lavinia. At the time the camp was called Camp Golden Star. She was the chef. She brings along her two sons, Bobby and Benji. Bobby and Benji go down to the lake. Bobby's swimming around. Benji's not watching him because he wants to be a peeping Tom. Watch two other people having two other camp counselors who are also not watching Bobby. Bobby's swimming in the lake and he ends up dying because he gets cut up by a motorboat or something. Well, Lavinia finds out. She is fucking fuming. She blames all the counselors. She blames her oldest son Benji. Loses it one night and she ends up killing all of the counselors. And then Benji hears her, what are you doing, woman? And she's like, starts chasing him. Tables are turned. He grabs a knife, stabs her and kills his mother. She becomes a spirit of the grounds there. 1949, we get our first asylum note. Okay, so for me, it goes freak show, asylum, murder house. Freak show's 100%, asylum's like 98%, murder house is 97. Like, they're all right neck and neck. We've got Judy Martin. This is before she becomes a nun. She's just Judy Martin at this point. She is involved in a hit and run. She caused the hit and run herself because she was out drinking. So she goes home from the bar one night and she ends up hitting this little girl. Instead of going out to check on her, she dips and she's like, for the next 11 years, she thinks that she has killed this little girl, so she has that hanging over her. I'll let you in. She did not kill her. I remember watching that episode, find out that she didn't actually kill the girl. I remember being like, oh my God. She goes to see the parents after like 10 years and was about to confess to hitting the daughter. The daughter walks in fully grown with a child. That is the gag of the decade. We're gonna get into 1952. Now, this is the first really kind of chaotic section. Freak show predominantly takes place in 1952, so there's a lot of shit that happened. But before we get to that, I'm just gonna go ahead and get Roanoke up here at the top. I'm gonna go ahead and get that little bit out of the way. There are 3 hunters that end up killing each other. They're staying at the Roanoke household because of the house and the atmosphere and the colonies, whatever it may be. They end up killing each other, but they become spirits of the land. Now we're gonna get into freak show. I really only jotted down the main notes of like if people died, things that would actually leave an imprint on the timeline for future things. And I'm just gonna rattle it off right now. If you really want to know how and why all this shit happened, you gotta go either watch the show or watch my video because it's a lot. So we got Twisty the clown. He starts kidnapping and killing people in Jupiter. Bet kills her mom. Dot attempts to kill Bet. The twins join the freak show. Del kills a man in Chicago. Jimmy kills a detective. Meep is killed in jail. Edward kills Twisty. Dandy kills Dora, Andy, Gloria, and the whole Tupperware party full of women. Dandy pays a detective to kill Regina. Salty dies from a stroke. Elsa takes Pepper to her sisters. I'll talk more about that one in a little bit. Jimmy cuts off his hands. Elsa kills Del. The freaks dismember Stanley and put him in a cage. Chester ends up killing Maggie. I should have put Chester goes and turns himself in to the police. Elsa sells the freak show to Dandy. Dandy kills most of the freaks in a massacre. That episode is wild. Bet, Dot, and Jimmy and Desi kill Dandy. Look at this. We're getting... Oh, God, okay. Ooh, I'm panicking. Anakin, I'm panicking. 1954. This is going to be our first Death Valley. This season fucking sucked. I hated every bit. That's not true. I hate Death Valley. Death Valley is just full of conspiracy theories. We're going to start with the aliens. Aliens arrive on Earth. Eisenhower, yes, President Eisenhower goes to meet with this lady who fell out of the fucking sky, Amelia Earhart. She was abducted by the aliens and was impregnated with a hybrid in the attempts to populate another planet or something like, I don't fucking know. The hybrid ends up killing her. Eisenhower agrees to sign the treaty with the aliens. And still Death Valley, 3 years later, we meet a guy, a thing, like an android called Valiant Thor. He's a liaison for the alien race. He comes basically to say, we're gonna build a facility here, abduct some people so we can crossbreed the aliens and the humans in order to make a new race, populate our dying planet. Eisenhower ends up giving him the facility in Nevada, Area 51, to breed the hybrids. Okay, enough of that. The last little bit of freak show in 1960, Elsa Mars, I don't know if you caught what I said because I kind of was going through it pretty quickly. She ended up selling the freak show because she just always had dreamed of making it big in Hollywood and having people know her name and recognize her and being loved. Actual personal life is shit. I put Elsa is successful in Hollywood but is very unhappy. She meets up with Massimo after years, asks him to run away with her, live out the rest of their days, but he says, well, too late, I'm dying and I have only got like a month left to live, so. And then she found out what happened to everybody at the freak show. That's tearing her up. Snuff film has made it back into circulation. Now she's famous. Everybody's digging up all her dirt. That is like gonna kill her career. Because at the time, you know, it obviously was the woman's fault. Somehow, some way, it was her fault. Life is just fucking horrible. Halloween night, I don't know if I'd even talked about it. Edward Mordrake, he's become a spirit, can be summoned on Halloween if a freak performs. And if he is summoned, he always will take a freak with him into the afterlife, into his freak show. Elsa's like, you know what? Fuck it. Everybody in my life is fucking dead or sick, is gonna die. My snuff film's coming out. Shit. I'm gonna just kill myself. She performs on Halloween on her show. Edward Mordrake comes. He puts her back in her freak show in Jupiter with all of the freaks. I didn't talk about it in my video. I don't know, I got to the very end of my notes and I was just so excited to be done that I completely forgot to talk about it. Bet and Dot end up getting together with Jimmy and they have a child. Well, are expecting a child. We don't know what happens to it. Desiree and Angus, who met while they were still at the freak show, they end up having 2 children together. Now we're gonna get into Asylum. 1962, we got Briarcliff Manor. Briarcliff is bought by the Catholic Church. Pepper, crossover queen, is framed. I could have put a freak show tag with this one too. See this happen in Freak Show. And Elsa drops off Pepper at her sister's house in 1952. Her sister and her sister's husband, so I guess her brother-in-law, are rude as hell. They hate Pepper. Sister couldn't have kids for the longest time, ends up getting pregnant, and they thought that would solve all their problems and make everything all hunky-dory. Who's Dory?
Hunky-dory. Who is hunky-dory?
Can't stand Pepper, and they both can't stand that baby crying. And Pepper's basically taking care of this child. The husband ends up killing the son. This little baby, slicing his ears off and drowning it in the tub. And then they call the police and blame it on Pepper. Because who would believe her? God, this woman lost her husband. She lost Elsa. Like, Elsa just dumped her off at her sister's house and just left her there. They commit her to the asylum. And then there's also another character, Lee Emerson, kills 18 people on Christmas. And he's dubbed the Santa Claus Killer. And then the next year, Lee is committed to Briarcliff. 1964 is when Asylum predominantly takes place. It kind of bleeds into 1965. And again, I didn't put every single fine detail because I don't have the space. Kit Walker is accused and committed for the Bloody Face murders. A serial killer that's going around. They're using the name Bloody Face. He's killing women. There's about 5 women that have died. Kit and his wife Alma, they had an interesting night. Alma is nowhere to be found. They think she's died, and so then they accuse Kit. Anyway, long story long, they end up committing him for the murders. Lana Winters is committed for homosexuality. Sister Mary Eunice is possessed by the devil. She ends up killing a Mexican woman. She also tosses Shelley's another patient there, tosses her decomposing body because I didn't mention Dr. Arden, who is the reigning physician at Briarcliff. He is also Hans Gruber. Do you remember me telling you about Hans Gruber? Way back in 1932 or 1930, whatever. Elsa Mars, the one that was sawing off the legs, that's the one. He came over to America, left Nazi Germany and tried to make a new life for himself, but he is still in the head. We find out that he was actually in Auschwitz, tests on people illegally. He's a murderer, created an immune booster or something like that. He's still doing it here in the asylum. He ends up using one of the patients, Shelley. Well, it goes sideways. Obviously, he's not good at his job. When it's obvious that she's not gonna live, Sister Mary Eunice takes Shelley's body and throws it out in a schoolyard. They take her to a hospital. They call them Monsignor, and he ends up killing her. He kills her! He chokes her with a rosary and smothers her. But Sister Jude gets framed and committed for the murder of Frank. Frank was a security guard. Sister Mary Eunice was the one that actually killed Frank. Dr. Thredson, he's actually coming to the asylum to assess Kit for trial, but while he's there, he meets Lana, becomes obsessed with her, and he's like, all right, I'm gonna save you. I'll get you out of here. Well, he does. When she gets home with him, he's like, actually, it's me. Hi. I'm Bloody Face. He ends up R-wording her, gets her pregnant. She ends up back at the asylum. The next year, 1965, Sister Mary Eunice is killed by Timothy Howard. He finds out that she's the devil, and he ends up pushing her over the balcony and killing her. Well, Dr. Arden, he was in love with Sister Mary Eunice. He can't take that she's dead, so he ends up K-wording himself, puts himself in the furnace with her body, and cremates himself with her. Lana ends up killing Dr. Thredson. Kit Walker is released by Lana. Lana gives birth to Johnny Morgan. That would be Dr. Thredson's son as well. Then Timothy Howard. He's promoted from Monsignor to Cardinal of New York. And then you get to the next year. Pepper dies. I'm sorry to break it to you. I think she died of like pneumonia or something. The reason why Asylum is not my favorite, because it has to do with aliens. And I could care less about aliens. There's a whole thing with Pepper being abducted by aliens, and also Kit's 2 lovers that he had are abducted by aliens. Kit is involved with the aliens in some correlation, but I don't care enough to talk about that. In 1967, Alma kills Grace. Now, both of them have had their children. Aliens actually impregnated both Alma and Grace with Kit's children. They all live together. Alma doesn't want to remember the aliens at all. She kind of wants to forget it ever happened. Grace, on the other hand, is like, we need to embrace where we came from, and I want to dive deeper into this. Alma, she can't take it, and she takes the axe and kills Grace. Also, what's happening in that year, this is our first cult stamp. Valerie ends up publishing something called the Scum Manifesto, like a big feminist movement, feminist cult. Scum, it stands for Society for Cutting Up Men. Honestly, her storyline kind of bored the hell out of me. Trying to explain that in my cult recap, I was like, 1968, Valerie ends up going to shoot Andy Warhol and gets institutionalized. Now, she's still leading the cult from inside. Oh my god, look how I spelled this name. Oh, that's a typo. Look away. What's happening in Murder House, you ask? I'll tell you. We've got Mr. R. Franklin. He ends up killing nursing students that are living in the house because he had a bad experience with a nurse and a thermometer. Remember back when they would shove it up your ass? Well, apparently he had a bad experience with one. He's out for revenge on any nurse ever. What's happening here? Okay. 1969, Death Valley. Eisenhower, he dies. Also that year, same season, Calico ends up going to the facility. We've got 3 things happening this year. 3 different seasons, I mean. Asylum, Lana Winters publishes her book called Maniac. Alma ends up dying in Briarcliff because after she killed Grace, she got sent to prison, but there was an overflow problem happening at the prison. Most of the prisoners ended up getting sent to Briarcliff, and she ends up dying. Also, what's happening in cult? Like I said, Valerie, she's still leading the cult from the institution. The cult is doing these killings, right? Somebody else is taking credit for it. Someone named the Zodiac. The Zodiac Killer is taking credit for the scum murders. Whatever, I don't care enough. 1970, we've got Asylum. Judy Martin ends up getting checked out of Briarcliff by Kit Walker to live with him and his 2 children. Also, in 1984, we're back in that season, but in 1970, a character named Margaret, she has come to the camp. They opened up the camp again after the whole Lavinia debacle, and Margaret, she's a fucking nerd. You know what? For her, we need to bring back bullying because she is a pawns. Nobody really likes her. She starts to become friends with Benji, Lavinia's oldest son. He went to war and he actually ended up killing a lot of people. When he would kill people, I don't know why, he would take their ear off and he had like a chain of ears like as a trophy. So Benji's come back to the camp to be a maintenance man. They end up calling him Mr. Jingles because of his keys. Him and Margaret end up actually becoming pretty close. Margaret gets teased because Benji's old as hell and she's like a 15, 16-year-old girl. It's kind of gross. All the counselors are like, Margaret, you stink. So one night she's sleeping. The spirit of Lavinia shows up. Girl, you should kill all these people. And you should pin it on Benji. Who said that? Who said that? Not me. That's what she does. Take an ear from everybody to make it look like it was him. That's his calling card. She cuts her own ear off. Look like she was attacked too. She kills everybody. Cuts all their ears off. Bloodies herself up. And she becomes a star witness and pins it all on Benji. And they lock Benji up in the asylum. Well, in a asylum, not Briarcliff. 1971. Unfortunately, Judy Martin dies. They were just pumping her full of drugs and her mind was slipping bad. Lana does an expose, a documentary on Briarcliff that ends up getting the whole asylum shut down. But also Lana becomes a bitch. Another Coven thing happening. Fiona, she's at the school, Miss Robichaux's academy, notices that Anna Lee Layton, she's getting really sick. Fiona is like, it is my time to shine. I'ma kill ya. She slits her throat. She kills Miss Annalee Layton. She kills her in front of Spalding, but Spalding is so whipped for Fiona. There's other things happening with Myrtle Snow. Myrtle gets jealous, tries to expose Fiona. There's all that going on too, but Fiona takes her 7 Wonders task. She takes her 7 Wonders task and she becomes the next Supreme. 1972, Cardinal Timothy Howard. Everything that Lana exposed in the documentary was happening under Timothy Howard. He was running the facility. Everybody's looking at Timothy and they're like, he cannot take the press. He can't take the heat. So he dies. K-words himself. Across the country, Addie is born. Addie's one of my favorite characters of the whole series. I didn't even talk about, I just realized I glazed over it. I didn't even talk about Dandy. Dandy is my favorite character of all time. I'm sorry, that was back in Freak Show. I just some tunnel vision right now. Oh, and also, hey, Dandy Mott. He's related to Edward Philippe Mott. They actually talk about it in Roanoke. They mention that the bloodline for the Mott family ends in 1952. But anyway, 1972, Addie is born. And then in 1973, at the Roanoke house, the Chin family, they move into the house to start their new lives in America. They are murdered. The spirits there don't want any inhabitants of the land, and they are killed. So they become spirits of the land too. All right, 1974. This is a double feature Death Valley. Well, at the time, President Richard Nixon, he gets abducted by some aliens. This was American Horror Story's twist on the Watergate scandal. He's been running his mouth, and so alien group is like, we'll just abduct him, torture him a little bit, and make him resign. We don't need to kill him. Beam him up, Scotty. Anally probe him, send him back down, and he's like, oh my fucking god, I'm fucking done. Goodbye. Resigns as President of the United States. 1977, in Murder House, Tate Langdon, he's born. Jesus Christ. And then in Hotel, Ramona Royale meets the Countess. She's changed into a vampire by the Countess, and they begin their love affair. 1978, I think I've mentioned it in my Murder House recap. If you start watching the show, this is the very first scene you're gonna see. Brian and Troy, the two twins, break into the murder house. It's been abandoned for a good long while at this point. They go down to the basement. They end up seeing the Infantata. Well, the Infantata kills both Brian and Troy in the house. And Addie's been watching them go in there, and she's just like, you're gonna regret it. 1979. This is our very first NYC card. That one is such a forgotten season. I don't have many notes on it. Don't get your hopes up high. Sorry. 1979. Sam and Patrick end up meeting, which you find out halfway through the season. The first half, you're like, oh, these people have never met before. They're on Fire Island. Patrick, he is on the police department at this point. Nobody knows that he is gay. He goes to Fire Island, a weekend of debauchery and gay sex. And that's where he meets Sam and another guy. I think his name is Billy. They all end up having a threesome. They get high as hell. They put a gimp mask on Billy. Billy ends up overdosing and he can't breathe. He dies. Sam ends up calling a guy named Henry who works for the mob. Henry ends up calling Whiteley. We end up finding out Whiteley becomes a serial killer. Whiteley is really good at dissecting people. They buried the guy on Fire Island. Double feature Death Valley. Mamie Eisenhower fakes her death, but is really put into the facility by Valiant Thor. After Eisenhower died, she says, you know what? I don't want to be like that. I want to go somewhere where I can live forever. Thor is like, okay, fine, slay, let's do it. They fake her death and put her in the facility. That's where she meets Calico, and they become BFFs. 1980, Kit Walker disappears is what I put, because we don't know if he actually died or not. He just was gone. He got very sick. One day they went to check on him and he was just gone. So we can assume he died involved with the aliens somehow. So I put most likely taken back by the aliens. This is gonna get chaotic, I already know. Oh, maybe not that bad. 1981, NYC. This is the meat and potatoes of that season. Whiteley begins killing gay men to build a sentinel. I don't get it. I don't know. But at the same time, there's also somebody by the name of Big Daddy. It's been going around the city that people have been seeing and spotting. They use him as kind of a mirror image to the HIV and AIDS virus, so anybody that sees him has been affected by that. Sam dies, Theo dies, Whiteley dies, and Hannah dies. Oh shit, I forgot to put Barbara dies too. Patrick's ex-wife. Let's go to 1983, shall we? Let's do Murder House first. Constance, she ends up shooting her maid Moira and her husband Hugo because they were having an affair that she found out about. When she killed him, Moira, she ended up burying in the backyard. And she was gonna bury Hugo in the backyard with Moira, but then she was like, I would never put you with your lover. She ends up cutting him up, putting him through a meat grinder, and feeding him to her dogs. Also happening in 1983, season 1984, Brooke, she's our main character. At the altar, getting ready to get married. Well, she thinks her husband-to-be, she's like, I saw last night my best man go over to the house, and I waited there to see if he would leave. He didn't leave until the morning of their wedding. And she's like, it was nothing. I just was scared. I didn't want to stay by myself. This seems fishy to me. If I were him, I would think the same thing too. It doesn't look good for you, Brooke or best man. Find out nothing did happen, but it does look sketchy. Her fiance ends up killing his best man. Brooke's father gets up to try and stop what's happening. He kills her father. He kills himself. At the altar, she's in her wedding dress. It is not a white wedding. It is a red wedding. In that year, same season, different people. Ray, he's in a fraternity. One of the guys ends up falling down the stairs. I don't know why. He didn't tell anybody. Homeboy just fell down the stairs. I think he's dead. He didn't do that. I think he was thinking people would probably think he pushed the guy down the stairs. I don't know. Whatever the fact, takes the boy who fell down the stairs, puts him in a car, takes it to a cliff, is driving the car off the cliff. Well, the boy didn't die. Yet Ray is trying to pull him out of the car and he's like, well, hold on to me. Holds on to his bracelet, rips the bracelet off, car goes over, the boy dies. But he's got the bracelet in his hand. Ray is like, fuck. If they ever find that car and they look at his hand, they're gonna find my bracelet. Shit. God damn it. Nothing ever comes of it. But that's his skeleton. We're going into 1984. I'll get Hotel out of the way. Nick Pryor later becomes Liz Taylor. She goes to the hotel on a business trip. Whenever she goes on business trips, that's her only time where she can actually be herself. Trans woman. She meets the Countess and the Countess says something like, you look like a man, but you smell like a woman. And then ends up taking on persona of Liz Taylor. Ends up just staying at the hotel. Not as a spirit. Season 1984. And I feel like it's just worth noting. All of this happens in been 1 week. Camp Redwood has opened back up again. And also, who's out on the prowl? Richard Ramirez, the Night Stalker. A group of young college students, and they're going to be new counselors at the camp. Mr. Jingles breaks out of the asylum that he's in. He's met with a woman named Donna who wants to study serial killers. I'll leave you some tools so you can get out of the asylum and head down to Camp Redwood. Finish what you started. Because they've been doing some electroshock therapy and convincing him, because they've been trying to get him to confess to the murders, and they were shocking him, and he's like, yeah, I probably did do it. You're right. At this point, he fully believes that he killed everybody at the camp. He didn't. Donna ends up kidnapping a nurse named Rita and takes on her identity for a week, and she's just gonna be watching over Mr. Jingles as he comes along. Long story long, all the counselors are killed except for Brooke, Trevor, and Margaret. But Margaret pins the massacre on Brooke. I don't know if that was the goal or that's just how it ended up happening. Margaret was gonna pin it on anybody. It just so happened to be Brooke. And then Mr. Jingles, Benji, and Richard Ramirez, the Night Stalker, he's been involved in the season throughout. Who cares? Him and Mr. Jingles, they both die, but they're brought back by the devil because, Richard Ramirez had that whole thing going on, and they end up leaving camp. 1985, we find out that Trevor finds out that Margaret is the one that was behind everything, but he didn't say anything. But they ended up getting married. Benji, while he's out with Richard, he's been out on the road with him for about a year, and he's like, I'm fucking sick of you killing everybody. So he ends up calling the police on him one day when he's in a gas station, and the police come and put him in prison, put him on death row. Benji goes off and lives his life for the next couple of years, changes his name, moves to Alaska, has a baby. 1986 in Hotel, Ren, she's one of the towhead children, vampire kids. She was locked in a car while her father went to go drink at the bar at the Hotel Cortez, and the Countess sees her, gets her out of the car. Countess goes in there and kills her father, kills her pappy. I'm getting tired, y'all. Oh my God, look at that. 1987, NYC, Patrick ends up dying from AIDS. He gets very sick and he loses his eyesight. And also what's happening in Delicate, Miss Preacher, you remember her, she's that batshit crazy lady. She ends up giving birth to her child. Her baby ends up getting taken away by Delicate witches. The Delicate witches have been involved with the doctor, I can't remember his name off the top of my head, gives the babies to the Delicate witches. And that's what happened with Miss Preacher. 1988. This storyline I think is so interesting, and this is in Roanoke. We've got Miranda and Bridget Jane. The two sisters, nurses, are suspected of killing patients in the hospital that they work at, because they did. They leave before it can be proven. We're going into the next year, 1989. They end up buying the Roanoke house, and they set up old folks home pretty much. They only take in patients according to the first letter of each patient's name. They want to kill as many people as it takes to spell out the word murder. They just get all these old people that nobody really cares about and they start killing them, and then they spray out murder. Well, they never finished it because the colonists get wind that they're in there hooting and hollering in the house, and they actually rip them apart. So now their spirits on the property too. Okay, now let's just get this one out of the way. This is 1984, but in 1989. Margaret ends up buying Briarcliff Manor and also other murder scene sites and is trying to turn them into attractions. Turned into quite the mogul, I will say. Brooke has been sentenced to death by lethal injection, but Donna is the one that puts the lethal injection in, and Donna gives her a jab of something, brings her back to life so she doesn't die. Margaret is opening up the camp again to give some kind of music festival. They're like, I'm going there because I want to kill Margaret, is what Brooke is saying. So Donna and her head that way. They meet up with some guy named Bruce who is starting his killing spree. Cut Bruce's thumbs off after he tries to kill both of them, tying him up to a telephone pole. He ends up at the camp hitchhiking. Benji commits suicide after his wife is killed. Richard Ramirez went and found him in Alaska because he got out of prison by the devil. The devil got him out of prison. I don't want to get into it. He killed his wife and left the baby alive. Benji took the baby, gave it to the aunt. I'm going back to Camp Redwood and I'm gonna kill people. He ends up killing himself. Margaret kills Courtney and Trevor on the property. Their spirit stays there. Donna and Brooke bring a reporter back to camp with them, but she gets killed. Bruce is killed by Trevor, kicks his body off the property so his spirit is not there. Richard is killed by every single ghost over and over again because you remember he has the devil powers. Even if he dies, he'll just get brought back to life. They all take turns every day making sure he dies. And then Margaret gets killed. They think that they got her off the property before she died, but they didn't. 1991. We're going to hotel. Ramona ends up having a new lover. Her and the Countess have been in quite the intense love affair. Well, she ends up finding another lover named like Moses or something. Well, the Countess gets jealous as hell. Goes and kills Moses. Countess and Ramona, obviously, they fall out. Ramona goes and moves back in with her parents. But in 1992, her mother dies. Her father, he is really starting to slip with dementia, maybe Alzheimer's, I'm not sure which one. But Ramona ends up changing him in the hopes that it will make his illness like revert back, but it doesn't. It actually just stuns him where he's at. He just is kind of like a vegetable. I don't think I marked it down because I was confused. I thought that she ends up killing her own dad because she's like, well, obviously you don't have any quality of life. Thought it happened within this year, 1992, but as I was doing my research, said it happened in like 2012 or something like that. I don't know, and I think I forgot to put it in here. Eventually, she kills her father. Season NYC, Gino dies from AIDS. So it's not long after Patrick dies. NYC didn't really get many notes. That's it. This is where it's going to get so fucking chaotic. Look at this shit. Look at this. This isn't even the worst of it. I think the next slide is gonna blow your minds. Hotel, 1993. Hypodermic Sally. She ends up going to the hotel with a bunch of friends. Not a bunch, only 2. And they're going to get high, have sex. And she's like, guys, I want to try something. Just hear me out. She sews their bodies together. She's in the middle of them. They have overdoses, start foaming at the mouth. They die. And she's like, I'm stuck. I'm naked and I'm stuck. This thing comes out called the addiction demon. He tortures Sally for days and she ends up ripping the seams. You would think that would be enough to keep her away from the hotel, but you'll find out no. What is happening in Murder House, you may ask? Well, guess what? A new family has moved into Murder House. Larry Harvey starts to have an affair with Constance. Constance and the Langdons have moved next door to Murder House. She's just trying to get back into the house. She wants to own the house again. She knows that if, God forbid, people die, they'll stay in the house. So she starts having an affair with Larry, just trying to get into the house. Larry becomes smitten and he tells his wife Lorraine, I don't love you anymore. We need a divorce. You need to take the 2 girls and go back to Ohio to your mom's house because I'm moving Constance and her family in here tomorrow. So Lorraine, obviously, she's quite beside herself. So she goes upstairs and locks the door to her girl's bedroom, lights it on fire. They all 3 die in the bedroom. And then Larry goes ahead and moves them in. Damn, Larry, you cold. We got some more hotel happening the next year. Sally takes new friends Donnie to the hotel to get high. Donnie begins to overdose. I don't know what the Sally, where she gets her fix at. Every person that tries to keep up with her dies. He ends up having an overdose. His mother, Iris, runs in there, thinks that he's gonna die, so she runs after Sally, pushes her out the window, cracks her head on the pavement, and dies on the hotel property. She is a spirit there too. Iris goes back into the room and sees that the Countess has actually changed Donnie before he can die. So Donnie is still around, but he is a vampire. He ends up becoming the Countess's main squeeze, and Iris becomes the manager of the hotel. In Murder House in 1994, this episode is it's imprinted in my brain. This episode's called Piggy Piggy. The Piggy Man. You remember we talked about him at the very beginning? He actually doesn't do anything in this season. He's just talked about. Constance is facing jail time of child neglect for one of her sons, Beau. He's got some major deformities, ailments, and he is locked up in the attic and kept out of sight, causing a lot of noise complaints. And so CPS is like, bitch, we're coming. And so then she asks Larry, can you go up there and go get him? Go kill him. He smothers Beau with a pillow. CPS is like, well, he died, so what now? Tate's clued in. He knows what's going on. Lights his office on fire, lights Larry on fire. He doesn't die, and then Tate goes to school, ends up shooting up the school and killing, oh shit, that's a typo. I meant to put 15 people. It's very Columbine-esque. And then he comes back home to the Murder House and he's killed by the SWAT teams. We're in the 2010s now, people. Now in Murder House, we've got Chad and Patrick. They are killed by something called the Rubber Man, who ends up being Tate. I'm sorry if I'm spoiling that for you. Stages it to look like a murder-suicide. Elsewhere, same season, but just across the country in Boston, we've got Vivian Harmon ends up having a miscarriage. But down the road from Chad and Patrick and the Murder House, we've got the hotel hotel, Cortez, John and Alex, their son Holden goes missing. They're out at the Santa Monica Pier. John puts Holden on a carousel. Next thing he knows, he's gone. Well, the Countess actually took him in order John to come back to the hotel because it's all been a plot so that James can talk to him and get him to finish the 10 Commandments killing. Okay, let's get into 2011, where I'm just gonna kind of rattle it off. The Harmons move into the murder house. Vivian gets pregnant with twins, one by her husband Ben and one by Rubberman Tate. Tate's a spirit, dark spirit. His son, bound to create something catastrophic. Copycat killers. Fiona and Dallas, they end up getting killed by the infantata in the basement. Larry kills Hayden. Hayden's the one that was cheating with Ben. Oh, I didn't put it there, but Ben was having an affair with Vivian, or an affair with Hayden from Vivian. Addie ends up getting hit by a car on Halloween night and she dies, but she dies off the property, so she's not stuck. Violet ends up wording herself. Tate kills an exterminator when the exterminator finds Violet's body. Vivian gives birth to Ben's baby, but it's a stillborn. And then Tate's baby is born, but that kills Vivian. Constance ends up taking the baby and names him Michael. Fiona, Dallas, and Hayden kill Ben, but they stage it to look like a suicide. I can tell I'm talking so much. I feel like I'm getting sick. We got 2012. The only thing that I could find that happens in Coven, Cordelia goes to meet Queenie. Queenie has started to show some of her powers. I skipped something. All right, well, I'll tell you right now. Lana Winters comes face to face with her son, Johnny Morgan. He was put up for adoption. He found out who his dad was, villainized Lana, got her book, and then you know what? I think my dad actually was the hero in this story. So he takes on the persona of Bloody Face, killing a lot of people, and then he's like, I'm gonna kill my mom. He gets on a film crew that's going to do an interview with Lana, sorry. She recognizes him immediately. He has the gun pointed at her. She takes the gun, turns it around, kills him. She kills her own son. Johnny Morgan is dead. Are you ready for this next slide? Get a load of this. Okay, let's just get this one out of the way. 2013, Indelicate, Adeline dies. Remember Adeline? I know, take it all the way back to the very beginning. One of the twins that Ivy gave birth to. Well, she did not want to be a part of the Delicate Witches. They tried to recruit her back. She said no. They said, oh, you, we're gonna light this place on fire. They set her kitchen on fire and she dies. Well, Coven, stay with me. Misty Day is burned at the stake and brings herself back to life. Zoe kills her boyfriend and joins the Coven. Kyle is killed in a bus accident but is brought back to life. Fiona kills Madison but she's brought back to life. Kyle kills his mother. She is not brought back to life. Fiona kills the Minotaur. Hank kills Kaylee. Myrtle is burned at the stake but is brought back to life. Zoe releases the Axeman. Zoe kills Spalding. Queenie kills Hank. Joan kills Luke. Nan kills Joan. Laveau and Fiona kill Nan. Fiona, Laveau, and the Axeman kill the witch hunters. LaLaurie dismembers Laveau and buries her. Laveau can't uphold her bargain with Papa Legba, and Queenie finds that out. Queenie says, you gotta send her to hell. Queenie kills LaLaurie, so LaLaurie and Laveau end up in a hell together. So Coven takes the 7 wonders, Misty Day dies, Kyle kills Madison, and Cordelia passes her 7 wonders and is the next Supreme. Well, the next year in 2014, Cordelia ends up making an announcement saying they make it very public about witches. If you have any powers, come on by. And then in Cult, Kai, his mother kills his dad and then kills herself. His older brother Vincent just started his psychology practice. He's like, oh, we cannot have this tied to our name. Lock them up in their room. And so they stay locked up and rot. So Roanoke, don't remember, it's split up into 2 halves. First half is more of a documentary style. The Miller family is telling about their experience of moving into the Roanoke house, and then they divulge into some of the history of the spirits that live there. The Millers move into the Roanoke house and get attacked by the spirits of the house, the Polks, and the colonists, which I guess the spirits of the land, but I didn't know how to phrase that. And then Lee's ex-husband Mason shows up dead. Lee is the one that killed him, and Lee is arrested for that crime. Cricket, he's a medium and he's trying to help him find out some answers. Homeboy, he's killed by the colonists. Pull out his intestines. And anyway, then the Millers leave the house. We're going to 2015. My Roanoke Nightmare is filmed. Audrey and Rory get married, if you care. Direct your attention to right here. I've obviously got 2 lines going to the same thing. That would be Murder House Apocalypse. This is where it can get kind of confusing when Apocalypse comes into the timeline. Michael ends up killing the nanny, Vivian and Tate's son, Constance took custody of. That's what we see at the very end of Murder House. Reminded of it again in Apocalypse. Now, the rest of this, most of it, actually not most of it, all of the rest of them we see in Apocalypse, they do happen in the Murder House, so I felt like I should put both of them there. Constance, she can't fucking take it anymore. Michael has become way too much of a handful for her, killing left and right. She goes to the murder house, killing herself so she can be with her kids. What a disaster. Michael ends up living at the murder house basically, but then Satanists find him because the crows are circling, the sky is turning red. He's not hard to find, and they end up bringing him a human sacrifice ritual for him to take on the role of the son of Satan, or whatever the hell. The meat and potatoes here of Hotel is happening in 2015. Let's just do it. Okay, the Swedish girls, do you remember them? They come to the hotel, they're killed. John, he's a detective, remember? And he starts to investigate some murders, but he's the one that's murdering people. He doesn't realize that until halfway through the season. The 10 Commandments killer. Will Drake buys the hotel. Tristan Duffy. Tristan and Alex, they're both changed into vampires. Alex ends up changing one kid who ends up changing a whole classroom of kids into vampires. Kids end up killing their parents. Iris kills a hipster couple. The Countess ends up killing Tristan because him and Liz Taylor are actually in love. Rin runs out in the middle of the street, gets hit by a car, and she is dead. John kills his partner Andy for having an affair with his wife. Will Drake and the Countess get married. Ramona kills Will Drake and the vampire kids. Rudy and Natasha get out of the hallway, and then they end up killing Marcy. But then that means Marcy's still at the hotel because her spirit's still there. James ends up killing Queenie. Donnie kills Rudy while the Countess kills Natasha. Iris and Liz kill Donnie. And then John kills the Countess and completes the 10 Commandments killings. 2016. If you follow this green line all the way up, Cordelia brings back Myrtle Snow from the dead. Shit, I meant to put that in black. That's supposed to be an apocalypse one. My bad. Cordelia brings her back because she's had some premonition something bad is going to happen. Roanoke. So My Roanoke Nightmare was filmed and aired back in 2015. Well, it got really big and popular, and the cast is being brought back for something called Return to Roanoke. And they want to put them all back in the house. Cast and the people that actually lived it out, the Millers. Agnes is the one that plays Thomason and the Butcher. Still believes that she is the Butcher, so she starts acting out, damn near killing people out on the street. Agnes is arrested, turned to Roanoke is filmed, and crew members are killed by spirits. The Polk family, remember Kincaid Polk? They're descendants of him. All the cast and the Polk family, except for Lot Polk, are killed. Bloggers, Miss Thaisa Farmiga leading the pack. Yeah, but they're killed. This stupid note right here, I have gotten so many comments about this little thing. In my video, I up in hotel. John does not die in the hotel. I said in my video that he died in the hotel and became a spirit at the hotel. That didn't happen. I can't get it right all the time. So what really happened, John ends up going out to try and get fresh blood for his family that have all been turned into vampires, except for his daughter Scarlett. The police have been following him, and they end up shooting him in a shootout, and he dies on the steps of the hotel, but he's not technically on the property. So he does not become a spirit, but because he was a serial killer, he gets invited back to Devil's Night, so he can come and see his family for one night out of the year. Thank you. Well, let's go ahead and get Colt out of the way. Around the election time with Trump and Hillary, Kai tells Gary to cut off his arm. He's been locked up by Ivy and Winter for groping Ivy at a protest. He wants to go out and vote for Trump, lock him up in his basement of the grocery store. Kai, he wants him to go vote for Trump, so Kai tells Gary to cut his arm off to see how far he'll go in order to vote for his country. He cuts his arm off, and then Kai begins to form his cult, and the cult kills several people around the city. That's what I wrote to make it just broad and cover all my bases, because honestly, cult is super boring to me. I think I was just getting to the end of my rope making this. Okay, now this little pink thing up here, this is our first double feature, Red Tide. We got the chemist moving to Provincetown. She begins to make the Muse pill. If you need a refresher, if you take a pill, if you have talent, you'll be like the best in the world at what you do. Well, isn't that a wrestler? If you don't have talent, end up becoming a pale person. Sarah ends up taking a pill, becomes a successful author. She ends up killing her husband though. 2017, this little thing for Hotel. Liz Taylor, unfortunately, has got prostate cancer. She ends up asking all of the spirits of the hotel to kill her. She dies so she can become a spirit, and then her and Tristan are reunited in the afterlife. For Roanoke down here, this is kind of like the tail end of Roanoke. Lee is put on trial for the murders, returned to Roanoke, and she's not found guilty. She's also not found guilty for killing Mason, her ex-husband. Lana Winters comes out of retirement. She does an interview with Lee. Well, while they're doing the interview, Lot Polk, he comes in there, guns blazing. Ba 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 ba. Police shoot him. Lot dies. And they find out that Flora, Lee's daughter, gone missing. And of course, they think Lee's suspect number one, but find out Flora went back to the Roanoke house. house. Lee goes, finds her there. They end up having a stakeout with the police. Flora wants to kill herself so she can stay at the house with her friend Priscilla. Well, Lee is like, bestie, no. She says, why don't I take your place? I will die and I'll look after Priscilla and make sure she's okay. Lee dies. Flora makes it out. And then the house burns down. And that's the end of Roanoke. We'll do cult. We'll get that one out of the way. Allie, she ends up having severe anxiety after the news that Trump has been elected as the U.S. president. She's got little icks she does not like to see, one of them being clowns. And so Kai's cult is a bunch of clowns. Specifically target her niche triggers. They begin to kill more people around the city. Kai runs for city council and he ends up winning. Kai becomes paranoid and has his siblings and members of the cult killed. Allie joins the cult but is a spy for the police. And Allie kills Ivy and Kai is arrested. This black line for Apocalypse. Michael kills a butcher and a detective. The Hawthorne School for Boys, it's like Miss Robichaux's Academy, but for boys. So they recruit him, bring him back to the Hawthorne School, excelling, and takes his 7 Wonders test. But while he does his test, he brings back Madison, because remember she died. Weenie died at the hotel, so she's brought back. Misty Day's brought back from her hell. The Hawthorne staff and Miss Mead are burned at the stake. Well then, time travel is involved. And Mallory comes back to this time in 2017. She's able to stop Queenie from going to the hotel. How the f*** does she do that? Wait. No. Shut up. I know how it goes. Mallory goes back to 2017 first. She stops Michael from living. She hits him with a car, which I kind of think is stupid. Like, that's it. You just killed him with a car, but he dies. And then I put, so nothing really happens going forward. But then she goes back to 2015. I didn't note this. And stops Queenie from going to the hotel. So Queenie is alive. This is how the season played out up until she goes back in time. Michael gives Dinah a talk show in exchange for her to lift Coven's protection spell so he can go in there and start killing some bitches. Zoe, Queenie, and Bubbles are killed. Coco and Mallory and Dinah have their memories erased and they're put under an identity spell. Well, in Cult in 2018, Kai starts the Fit Cult. I can't remember what the it stands for. It's some anti-feminist thing. Allie runs for state senate. Well, Kai escapes from prison, goes to assassinate Allie, and then Beverly shoots Kai from behind, shoots him dead. And then Allie ends up winning state senator, and then we see her getting ready for a scum meeting. She joins the scum feminist cult. Double feature Red Tide. Sarah ends up coming back to Provincetown, meeting Dr. Feldman, who gives her some new teeth so she can go. Sarah meets Austin. Austin takes the pill. Austin and Sarah kill some drag queens. Eureka is one of them. The end of 1984 is here in 2019. Bobby, not to be confused with the younger son of Lavinia. Bobby is Benji's son. He named his son after his brother. Bobby has grown up aunt who raised him. Well, she died. He's like, I've been getting checks from this address and I know it has to be from my dad. So I'm going to go find him. Goes to the Camp Redwood. All the spirits show themselves and they tell him to go find Donna, who's working at the asylum, and they end up finding out that the checks were coming from Brooke. Brooke is still alive. They find Brooke, they have a conversation, it's kind of boring. And then Bobby goes back to the camp and he ends up finally meeting his father, his uncle, and his grandmother Lavinia. And that is the end of 1984. Also, that was the end of Cult. We are getting to the end. Got 2 alternative timelines happening here. So Mallory went back in time and nothing ever happened. This is what would have happened up at the top. Emily and Timothy actually met at a cafe and began to have a relationship. If she never went back in time, this is what would have happened. Nuclear bombs exploded and killed most of humanity. Emily and Timothy meet on the way to Outpost 3. Coco and Mallory go to Outpost 3. In 2021, again, the alternative storyline is that Emily and Timothy would have had their son. The nuclear bombs had gone off. Nobody went back in time. What would have happened? Michael shows up to Outpost 3 to find the right people to bring to something called the Sanctuary. Mallory shows her powers. Cordelia, Madison, and Myrtle, they wake up and they were waiting because, you know, they put them under identity spells. Remember? Oh my god, it's so confusing. Everyone in Outpost 3 is poisoned by Miss Venable and Miss Mead. Miss Mead kills Miss Venable. Coco, Mallory, and Dinah are awakened out of their identity spells. Vo is brought back from hell to have Dinah take her spot. Coven destroys Miss Mead. Michael kills Madison, Coco, and Laveau. Myrtle kills Brock after he stabs Mallory. Cordelia sacrifices herself in a sacred taking so that Mallory can become the next Supreme. So Cordelia died. Mallory ends up going back in time to kill Michael, so Cordelia actually didn't die. Open up your mind. Oh my god, okay. Let's get Death Valley done and out of the way. This is the modern day Death Valley, what's happening in 2021. This is the reason I could not stand this half of the season. I wanted to punch the wall. 4 friends go camping in Death Valley. They're abducted by aliens and probed with the hybrids. Taken to the facility to give birth. After they give birth, 3 of them are killed along with their hybrids. 1 is decapitated and made into a breeding machine for the aliens. Mamie is killed by Theta. We're done with that one, thank God. Double feature, Red Tide. So basically what happens, the Gardeners move to Provincetown. Harry and Alma end up taking the Muse pill. Harry kills with Sarah and Austin for blood. Mickey takes a pill, and he's talented too, so it works out for him. Mickey kills a guy at something called the Dick Dock. Alma kills the chief. Doris gives birth to her baby Eli. Doris takes a pill, but she is not talented, and she becomes a pale person. Karen takes a pill and kills Mickey, then kills herself. Sarah and Austin are killed by the pale people. Alma kills Harry. Chemist Ursula, Alma, and Eli leave and go to LA. Alma kills a boy at an audition, and Ursula gives out the pill to hundreds of people, and most turn into pale people who destroyed the city. I feel like after every season I need to be like, our last little note for Hotel 2022. John goes to Devil's Night. Well, when he's there, Billie Dean Howard, she's jumped around from season to season. She's a medium. She keeps making these TV specials about the hotel and about the spirits, and they don't like it. They're like, stop telling people about us. He says, well, come to Devil's Night with me. Well, all of the serial killers at Devil's Night gang up on her, and they're like, you're gonna fucking stop talking about us and stop publishing shit and coming back to this hotel, or we're gonna kill you. So she's like, okay, word, and leaves. And then John goes and spends time with his family. This is it, people, this is it! Okay, 2023. Indelicate. Anna becomes pregnant while she's on an awards show run for her movie. She thinks she's being followed and that someone is trying to sabotage her pregnancy, which they are. The Delicate Witches are. Anna was pregnant with twins, but she miscarries one of them. Begins to think she's seeing things. The Delicate Witches are watching her. I think that's kind of like a redundant thing to what I just said, but whatever. In 2024, Babette, a young thing, a young hot actress on the scene, trying to come for the throne of Anna Wintour Scott, or whatever her name is. Not Wintour. She's not the editor-in-chief of Vogue. Babette is killed in a car crash. Virginia, who is Anna's mother-in-law, and Miss Preacher are killed by the Delicate Witches. Anna wins her Oscar. Dex is killed by Ivy. Siobhan ends up killing Ivy. I didn't put that, but she does. Anna gives birth, but the witches take her baby momentarily. Adeline helps her banish Siobhan, and Siobhan dies. And then the Delicate Witches are gone, and Anna has her baby and her Oscar in the end. And our last note of 2024, the 2024 season has come to an end. This is for Apocalypse. This is juicy. Emily and Timothy's son kills the nanny. So it's kind of like a full circle, bringing it back to Michael killing the nanny. Guys, my head f***ing hurts. I am so sick of this shit. I love this show so much. I obviously wouldn't have put all this time and effort into stuff like this if I didn't, but my God, am I over it. I'm ready to put my time and energy into another thing. Like, I'm ready to obsess about something else. All I've been thinking about since I uploaded these videos has been American Horror Story. I can't do it anymore. Give me a break. I don't think I made it clear at all, but I hope you get an understanding of timeline. Okay, I've had enough. I've been recording for 3 hours. Oh my God, every time. I was re-recording this thinking, oh, well, I'm definitely going to shorten this down to like an hour and a half. My throat is hurting. And now it's time for me to complain. My throat hurts. I'm tired. Well, I hope you enjoyed Sweaties. My brain is mush. It's over. It's all ogre now. We did it. Well, I did it. No, thank you for watching. I realized I got most of my subscribers was from the American Horror Story videos. I did not expect them to pop off like they did. I just posted it because it was something that I was really into, and I was like, well, maybe like a couple hundred people will see it and they might be into it too. But I didn't expect it to take off because it's been a little bit since American Horror Story's kind of been mainstream if you think about it. So I didn't expect any of this to blow up. But thank you for watching. If you did, I will be coming out with new breakdown videos of different shows. I have a show that I am currently working on. I sound like I'm a director in the middle of rewatching a show that I have been a fan of for years. I have other ones that, oh, maybe you could see something back there. Can you tell what that is? That might be something we talk about in the future too. Just because I can't help myself, I'll tell you what the next... Well, I'm not going to tell you. I'll let you guess what the next one's going to be. I'll give you some hints. Very British, love. Very, very British. It's about to be a movie. They're filming it as we speak. I've been seeing it all over Twitter. And I can't wait. I'll give you one more hint. Hang on. Ew. Yucky. I need razor blades to put in here. No, I'm not doing all that. I'm not that committed. Thanks for watching, sweaties. If you made it to the end, hallelujah, hallelujah. Oh my god. I have to work tomorrow. Alright, I'm done. Goodbye.